Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We're continuing our Wayside School is Falling Down series. We're at chapter 20, 21, and 22. They're all combined. You'll understand. It's called Eric, Eric, and Eric. Mr. Kidswater's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. Mrs. Jules, send Eric to my office at once. He sounded mad. Mrs. Jules was confused. When did we get a loudspeaker? She asked. Louis put it in yesterday, said Jenny. Mrs. Jules was still confused. There were 3 Erics in her class. She didn't know which one Mr. Kidswater meant. Eric Fry was fat but not short. Eric Bacon was short but not fat. Eric Evans was short and fat. Mrs. Jules chose the biggest Eric. Eric Fry, Mr. Kidswater wants to see you. Eric Fry trembled as he slowly stood up. The other 2 Erics smiled. The principal's office was on the first floor. It's not fair, Eric thought as he headed down to his doom. Anytime Eric does something wrong, I'm the one who gets into trouble. He stood in front of the principal's doors, his heart beating very fast. He took a couple of deep breaths, then he knocked lightly. Enter, boomed Mr. Kidswater. Eric turned the doorknob. He took one step inside, then stood with his back against the wall, as far away as Mr. Kidswater as he could get. Mr. Kidswater sat behind an enormous desk. He wore mirror sunglasses so Eric couldn't tell where he was looking. Sit down, Eric, he said. Eric moved to the small metal chair in front of the desk. A bare light bulb hung above his head. Mr. Kidswater cracked his knuckles. We can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. It's your choice, said Mr. Kidswater. I don't know what you're talking about, said Eric. I didn't do anything. So it's the hard way, asked Mr. Kidswater. Very well, you'll talk. One way or another, you'll tell me everything I want to know. But Mr. Kidswater pounded his fist on the desk. When was the last time you sharpened your pencil? Eric tried to remember, but he was too nervous to think. Let me think. We had a spelling test on Friday, but I borrowed. Were you home yesterday afternoon at 12:15? Asked Mr. Kidswater. Yesterday? Asked Eric. I was here at Wayside School. I remember. I ate lunch, and then I played kickball. Mr. Kidswater smiled. Do you kick with your left foot? He asked. No, I'm right-footed, said Eric Fry. Grunted Mr. Kidswater. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? Yes, said Eric, 2 weeks ago. Aha, said Mr. Kidswater. So you admit it. Do you know what a mugworm griblick is? Eric Fry turned pale. No, please, he begged. I didn't do it. I'm innocent. You got the wrong Eric. There are 2 other Erics in my class. Mr. Kidswater scowled. So that's the way you're going to play it, is it? Well, that's fine with me. I've got all the time in the world. He flicked on the microphone. Mrs. Jules, send me another Eric. 29 floors above them, Mrs. Jules looked at the 2 remaining Erics. Okay, Eric Evans, she said. Go see Mr. Kidswater. Eric Evans shivered. His eyes were filled with tears. Why me? He asked me over and over again. He asked himself over and over again as he walked down the stairs. It's my parents' fault. Why did they have to name me Eric? Why couldn't they name me Osgood? He tapped on the door to the principal's office. Come in, bellowed Mr. Kidswater. Eric Evans gulped, then walked inside. He sat in the little chair in front of Mr. Kidswater's enormous desk. Eric Fry was nowhere to be seen. What happened to Eric Fry? He asked. I'll ask the questions, barked Mr. Kidswater. But don't worry, Eric, he said gently. You'll have nothing to fear, so long as you tell the truth. And he cracked his knuckles. Eric Evans was very scared. Mrs. Jules always said there was more than one answer to every question. He hoped he gave Mr. Kidswater the right ones. Did you have a spelling test last Friday? Mr. Kidswater asked. Yes, said Eric Evans. How did you know that? I have my ways, Mr. Kidswater said slyly behind his mirrored sunglasses. When was the last time you sharpened your pencil? This morning, said Eric Evans. Marisha actually stepped on it and, did you play kickball yesterday at 12:15? No, I played tetherball. Right hand or left hand? Right hand. Mr. Kidswater tossed the stapler at him. Eric caught it with his right hand. Mr. Kidswater scowled. Okay, Eric, tell me this. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? No, but I'll go. If you want me to, I'll go right now if you want. You're not going anywhere, shouted Mr. Kidswater. Have you ever heard of mugworm griblick? Ah! Eric Evans screamed. Upstairs, Mrs. Jules heard Mr. Kidswater's voice resound over the loudspeaker. Mrs. Jules, send me the last Eric. I'm on my way, said Eric Bacon. He hopped out of his chair and bounced down the stairs. He didn't even bother knocking on Mr. Kidswater's door. He just walked right in. What can I do for you? He asked. There were no signs of Eric Evans. Have a seat, said Mr. Kidswater. I just want to ask you a few questions. Sure thing, said Eric Bacon. As he sat in the little chair, he leaned back with his hands behind his head, and he put his feet up on Mr. Kidswater's desk. He looked at himself in Mr. Kidswater's mirrored glasses. He took a comb out of his back pocket and combed his hair. His hair was very neat and trim. He had gotten it cut yesterday at 12:15 at Charlie's barber shop. Mr. Kidswater cracked his knuckles. When was the last time you sharpened your pencil? He asked. November the 11th, Eric Bacon answered right away. It was 3 minutes before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember because my watch stopped. Where were you yesterday at 12:15? I was in the garden having tea. Did Mauricia step on somebody's pencil this morning? Asked Mr. Kidswater. Yes. Whose? She stepped on everybody's pencil, said Eric Bacon. Are you left-handed or right-footed? Demanded Mr. Kidswater. I write with my left foot and I kick with my right hand, replied Eric Bacon. Mr. Kidswater scowled. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? No, I never get my hair cut, said Eric Bacon. I'm bald. This is a wig. Mr. Kidswater took off his glasses and glared at him. Do the words mugworm griblick mean anything to you? Eric Bacon shook his head. I can look it up in the dictionary if you want. Mr. Kidswater shook his head. I tried that. It's not there. He rubbed his chin. Okay, boys, you can come out now. Eric Evans and Eric Fry crawled out from under the desk. Mr. Kidswater looked at each Eric. One of you is lying, he said. I don't know who it is, but I'll find out, and when I do, whoever it is will be very sorry. Now, I'll give you one last chance to come clean. Eric Fry was trembling. Eric Evans was shivering. Come on, let's blow this popsicle stand, said Eric Bacon. He walked out the room, and the other two Erics followed. Mr. Kidswater rubbed the back of his neck. He looked at the white card on top of his desk. One side said, Charlie's Barber Shop. Under that, in blue ink, it read, Eric, underline wrote, he turned the card over. It says, Eric, Tuesday, 12:15. Mr. Kidswater turned the card over, and on the other side, a left-handed person had written with a sharp pencil, Mr. Kidswater is a mugworm grimlick. Chapter 23. Teeth. Something terrible happened. Rodney grew 2 new front teeth. Rodney was afraid nobody would think she was cute anymore. Mrs. Jules was giving a health lesson. Always brush your teeth, she said, and remember to scrub behind your ears. But I'll get toothpaste in my ears, said Todd. Everyone laughed, except Rodney. She didn't want anybody to see her new teeth. She hadn't smiled for over a week. Mrs. Jules made Todd write his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. At recess, Rodney decided to tell Louis her problem. Louis was talking to Dee Dee. Do you have any green playground balls? Asked Dee Dee. I'm sorry, I've already given them all away, said Louis. That's not fair, said Dee Dee. Why don't you ever save one for me? You know I can't do that, said Louis. We have to save. If I save you a playground ball for you, then all the other kids want me to save a playground ball for them, too. Thanks for nothing, Louis, said Dee Dee, and she stormed away. It was Rodney's turn. She made sure nobody else was listening. Louis, will you help me? She whispered. Sure, Rodney, what's the problem? Asked Louis. Rodney smiled, showing Louis her teeth. Very nice, said Louis. No, it isn't, complained Rodney. I used to whistle when I said words with S's in them. Now nobody will think I'm cute." "I think you're cute," said Louis. "You don't count," said Rodney. "Thanks a lot," said Louis. "I didn't mean it bad," said Rodney. "You think everybody's cute, even Miss Mush. That's why I like you." "Thank you, Rodney. I like you too." "Thank you," said Rodney. "Now do me a favor. Will you please kick me in the teeth?" "No," said Louis. "Why not?" asked Rodney. "You said you liked me. If you like me, you'll kick me in the teeth." "You know I can't do that," said Louis. "If I kick you in the teeth, then all the other kids will want me to kick them in the teeth too." Rodney scowled. "Thanks for nothing, Louis," she said. She crawled into the bushes where nobody would be able to see her mouth. "Louis! Louis!" Turning the page. "Terrence stole our playground ball," said Jason. "I wish you children would learn to share," said Louis. "Make him give it back," said Stephen. Louis started to say something, then stopped. He twirled his multicolored mustache. "Hey, Rodney," he called. "Will you help me?" Rodney crawled out of the bushes. "You wouldn't help me. Why should I help you?" she said. "Terrence stole their playground ball," said Louis. "Make him give it back." "Huh? Her?" asked Stephen and Jason. "Me?" asked Rodney. Louis winked at her. Rodney's eyes lit up. She knew what Louis was talking about. "Okay, Louis," she said. "That's a good idea. That's a wonderful idea." She hurried across the playground. Stephen and Jason ran after her. Terrence kicked a red playground ball up the air, then ran under it and caught it. "Hey, Terrence," said Rodney. "That's not your playground ball. You stole it." "Drop dead, ketchup head," said Terrence. Rodney walked up to him, stared him straight in the eye, and said, "In your hat, muskrat." That surprised Terrence. He took a step back. Then he collected himself and said, "Dig a hole, Millie Mole." Rodney took a step forward towards him. "Kiss a goose, Dr. Seuss," she replied back. Terrence looked around. A group of kids had formed a circle around them. Go to jail, garbage pail," he said. Rodney held her ground. "Go to the zoo, Mr. Jagoo," she retorted. Everyone was very impressed by how brave Rodney was. "Now give me the playground ball," she demanded. "You want it?" asked Terrence. "I'll give it to you all right." And he raised his fist in the air. "Good. Let me have it," said Rodney. She smiled, showing her new 2 front teeth. Terrence shook his fist. "You're asking for it," he said. "That's right," said Rodney. Her teeth gleamed at him. Terrence brought his fist way back behind him. Rodney closed her eyes. "Hey, look," said BB. "Rodney's got 2 new front teeth." "Oh, they're cute," said Jenny. Rodney opened her eyes. "You think so?" she asked. "No, you were cuter before," said Paul. "I think she's cuter now," said Todd. They took a vote. 12 kids thought she looked cuter with her 2 front teeth, and 12 thought she looked cuter before. 3 thought she should just keep just one of the teeth, or the tooth. So Rodney decided to keep her teeth. They were good for biting carrots. Then all of a sudden, it clawed on her. Uh-oh, she remembered. She ducked just in time, missing the hit. Tomorrow, we'll have chapter 24, another story about potatoes. Have a great rest of the day.